I'm Bambi Francisco for this segment of Lessons for Entrepreneurs, and I'm speaking with Kevin Hartz. He's the CEO and founder of Eventbrite. Kevin also founded Zoom back in 2002. He raised $50 million for Zoom. He's raised over $9 million, or about $9 million for Eventbrite. Kevin joins me now to give us his lessons for entrepreneurs.
Thank you very much.
So Kevin, give us 3 pieces of advice.
3 pieces of advice. I think, first of all, and what I see so much these days is not having multiple options. So by that I mean that entrepreneurs go out and they say, I'm going to tackle this market and raise $10 million, and then I'll take the company public. The reality is you can never bank on any. You can't bank on outsiders or venture capitalists and so on. So I think number 1 tip I would say is really to focus on having lots of options. So in the case of Eventbrite, we bootstrapped.
And you put in the initial, what, $250,000?
That's correct. I had the luxury to do that, but I think you see the analogy or the analogous thing happening now with a lot of the Y Combinator companies or a lot of the new Web 2.0 companies, is that they're bootstrapping and they're not relying on investors' money because you just don't know it can vaporize or disappear overnight.
Okay. So have options.
Have lots of options.
Before you tip. I bet it's also stay focused. But what's your second piece of advice?
Second piece of advice is always be capital efficient. And I think that I've seen the cases where companies that have really spent a lot and been really aggressive, have succeeded. But the majority of the times, it's really learning bad habits. We've been capital efficient from day one. With Eventbrite and with Zoom, and we see that capital efficiency. When I go to Zoom board meetings, I see how frugal and how thoughtful the CEO and the whole team is about their spending, even though they have a lot of money in the bank and are doing extremely well. And that translates as you scale a business. You're more intelligent and building a highly successful, profitable business versus adding a lot of headcount or spending effusively. So learning that from day one is very important.
I think someone said you can be very foolish with a lot of money. There's a woman, so she didn't want any money.
Right
so,
on.
The third piece of advice.
Third piece of advice. The third piece of advice is really around. My third piece of advice, I would say not spend too much time looking at the competition. I had recently heard from somebody that actually came from Skype, and I had talked to this person and said, what do you think of all the competitors in the market? And they said, what competitors? We're really just focused on building a great product and delivering that to our customers, and we're not distracted by the head jerks left and right of who's behind or who's launched today or tomorrow, but instead really focusing on excellence in your own company, building a great team, building a great product, getting that to market. I'm
visualizing those runners, how when they turn back and they start looking at the other runners, that's when they start slowing down.
Yes. In my case, I trip and fall on my face.
Or trip and fall on your face. So, okay, so another piece of advice maybe would be, you started Zoom, which is a payment platform company, so I'm sure there were a lot of lessons you learned from Zoom, just about the technology perhaps. What did you learn from Zoom that you're applying to Eventbrite?
Yeah, great question. In a payments and transaction business, we spend a lot of time, and I think Max Levchin at Slide coined the term metricizing, looking at analytics and driving specific numbers. So in our case, we're looking at average ticket sizes, and we're looking at the conversion rates, and we're looking at credit card processing rates, and a transaction business can be really managed and grown by from a metric standpoint. And it's the same whether you're helping somebody send money back to their family in the Philippines in Manila or in New Delhi, as in the case with Zoom, or whether somebody's buying a ticket for the Vader TV Splash event coming up.
I didn't even know you were going to say that one more time during this interview. So, and final advice maybe from a failure, perhaps. I mean, have you had any major failures in the past 10 years since you've been an entrepreneur? Around 10 years, almost 10 years. Any failures or setbacks?
You know, I think that I would say a major setback for me was an initiative at Zoom. I had been guilty of looking over my shoulder, and we were really trying to surpass Western Union really quickly.
Fall?
I tripped and fell. So we tried to launch an ATM debit card product in that case without really studying the market. And we were doing really well in our core business. And we tried to launch this new product. At the same time, we tried to spread into too many companies too quickly. So really, again, walking before you can run, getting very good, focusing and doing what you do best rather than spreading yourself thin too early. It was a very painful lesson for me, and you know, luckily the company's recovered since, but I certainly would put that in there.
I see that discipline applied now to Eventbrite and why you just want to focus on your verticals.
That's correct.
So good. Well, great advice. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks so much.
I've been speaking with Kevin Hartz. He's the CEO and founder of Eventbrite. I'm Bambi Francisco.